And then out of nowhere, hey! That's okay.
My 23-year-old sister got knocked up and decided my dream wedding venue was her personal maternity gift. She thought crying would make me fold. Instead, it bought her a one-way ticket to the humiliating collapse of her golden child empire. I'd spent 3 grueling years in a PhD program, saving every dime and sacrificing sleep just to lock down this venue. We signed ironclad contracts. We paid massive deposits 36 months in advance just to secure a single Saturday in September. But my youngest sister, she got a ring slipped on her finger a few months ago, got pregnant shortly after, and decided her absolute lack of planning constituted my personal emergency. It started at a Sunday cookout. My sister tapped her solo cup and announced her pregnancy to the family. We all cheered and hugged her, but the second she got me alone by the patio doors, the vibe shifted. She rubbed her flat stomach, smiled dead in my eyes, and told me she was taking my venue. Why? Because she just couldn't stress herself with planning and knew I'd do what's best for her. She didn't ask, she demanded it, treating my 3 years of saving and sacrifice like a backup plan for her pregnancy. The sheer entitlement radiating off her was absolutely suffocating. The patio went dead silent. Every single pair of eyes pivoted to me, fully expecting me to fold like a cheap lawn chair. The second I told her no, her mask slipped. She turned on the fake tears and stormed off. Right on cue, my parents cornered me. My mother, the ultimate enabler, stepped right into my personal space, her face twisted in a furious scowl. She jabbed her finger in the air, aggressively lecturing me about how I had waited 3 years and could easily wait a few more months for the sake of the family. By the time my fiancé dragged me out of that hostile environment, my phone was already vibrating off the console. Venomous texts from my father flooded the screen, demanding I surrender a 5-figure reservation to stop his precious little daughter from crying. They thought I would break. They assumed 28 years of conditioning me to be the family doormat would guarantee my swift submission. I didn't break. I just got quiet, and then I got to work. The absolute audacity peaked when my sister, drunk on our parents' blind, toxic support, tried to force my hand through pure fraud. She manufactured a fake text conversation, gleefully informing me she had spoken to my wedding planner and was heading to the office to transfer the contract into her name.
She actually thought she could legally hijack a commercial agreement with a fake screenshot and an entitled strut. That was her fatal mistake. She mistook my silence for surrender, not realizing I was busy quietly severing every single thread that connected her to my life. Behind the scenes, my fiancé and I initiated a scorched earth protocol. We spent hours on the phone, establishing ironclad passwords with every single vendor, the caterers, and the venue management. I personally sat in my planner's office, watching her eyes widen in sheer professional horror as I explained the fraudulent takeover my sister had attempted. We didn't just stop at passwords. We legally canceled the catering my parents had held over our heads as leverage, opting to build a potluck with the future in-laws who actually respected us. We took that refunded catering money and reallocated every single dime. My sister wanted my venue. Instead, she just bought herself a legally binding trespassing charge enforced by the off-duty armed security guards I just hired to stand at the front gates on my wedding day. The ink on that security contract was barely dry when my phone screen illuminated with a fresh wave of digital venom. My sister, utterly convinced of her own manufactured reality, had started a group chat with the entire extended family. She didn't just ask for the venue anymore. She formally announced she had graciously accepted my generous offer to step aside. She posted a Pinterest board of my floral arrangements, shamelessly rebranding them as her maternity wedding vision. My father immediately chimed in, praising my sudden maturity and reminding me that blood is thicker than water. They were practically measuring the drapes in a house they didn't own, entirely oblivious to the fact that I had just changed all the locks. I sat at my kitchen counter watching their texts roll in. I didn't panic or beg them to stop. Every ping was just another nail in their own social coffins. The sheer panic that had previously gripped me for 48 hours evaporated entirely, replaced by a cold, surgical clarity. They were banking on my historical weakness to pull this off. They were betting the house on the girl who used to write her sister's college applications just to keep the peace. Then came the voicemail. My sister left a 3-minute rant, faking that sweet, innocent tone she always used to get her way. "Hey, sweetie, Mom told me you were still pitching a little fit about the catering deposit."
Don't worry, we're keeping the same menu you picked out, so you'll still get to taste it. Just remember to text me your new dress size, okay? I know stress makes you gain weight, and I want my bridesmaids looking uniform. She wasn't just stealing my wedding. She was demoting me to a prop in her stolen fairy tale, casually twisting the knife just to prove she could. But the true audacity came from my mother. In a desperate bid to isolate me, she bypassed me entirely and called my future father-in-law. She spun a hysterical, weeping lie about my sister having a high-risk pregnancy, demanding he force my fiancé to surrender the venue for the safety of the unborn. She expected him to browbeat us into compliance. Instead, my father-in-law, a man who built a construction empire from dirt, laughed in her face, told her exactly where she could shove her entitlement, and hung up. He and my mother-in-law were at my front door 20 minutes later with 2 bottles of Cabernet and a promise to be the safety net my own bloodline refused to be. With my new family standing right behind me, I made the final, decisive move. I picked up my phone and dialed the one person who could turn this localized family drama into a total, inescapable spectacle: my estranged older brother. He had previously declined my wedding invitation due to work, entirely detached from our parents' toxic dynamic. I didn't yell or exaggerate, I just calmly stated the facts. I forwarded my sister's fraudulent emails to the wedding planner and played him the voicemail. There was a dead pause on the line. "I'm changing my flight," his voice hard as flint. "I'm walking you down that aisle." The trap was set, the perimeter was secured, my vendors were fortified behind strict password protocols, and my brother was en route to witness the incoming carnage. I drafted one final, chillingly polite text to my sister, perfectly mirroring her fake sweetness. "I've sorted out the final details with the planner. Everything is locked in for September. See you then." She replied with a string of heart emojis, completely blind to the fact that I hadn't surrendered my wedding. I had just invited her to her own execution. September finally hit. While my fiancé and I were inside the estate, surrounded by the family we actually chose, standing at the altar with my older brother tall beside me, the atmosphere was electric with genuine love and triumph. We didn't have the lavish, parent-funded catering we originally planned, but the incredible feast our loyal friends pulled together felt like a king's banquet. Outside those thick oak doors, however, a very different reality was about to crash down on the people who thought they could bully me into submission. Right on schedule, A sleek black limousine pulled up to the wrought iron front gates of the venue. Out stepped my 23-year-old sister, wrapped in a custom flowing white maternity gown, flanked by my beaming parents. She had actually done it. She had mailed out her own invitations, hired her own photographer, and directed over 100 of her own guests to arrive at my venue. She was entirely convinced her delusions of grandeur would simply overwrite my legally binding contracts. She strutted up the cobblestone path with that familiar, sickeningly sweet smirk, ready to claim her stolen throne, barking orders to the venue staff to start ushering her friends inside. That was the exact moment she hit the impenetrable wall of reality. Two towering off-duty police officers stepped out from the shadows of the archway, casually folding their arms across their tactical vests. My sister's smirk faltered as my wedding planner, the exact same woman she had tried to defraud months earlier, stepped forward with a clipboard. I wasn't there, but my security team told me the blood instantly drained from her face. The planner calmly informed her there was no maternity wedding and absolutely no entry. Her fake screenshots held zero legal weight in the real world. The crushing blow wasn't just being turned away, it was the public, humiliating spectacle of her own making. Dozens of her invited guests were now pulling into the parking lot, stepping out in formal wear, only to find the glowing bride screaming hysterically at armed guards while our father uselessly threatened to sue an ironclad security firm. My brother walked out to the gates just long enough to look our parents dead in the eye, shake his head in utter disgust, and hand them a manila envelope containing all the receipts of their betrayal before turning his back on them forever. My sister was left standing on the curb in a white dress, sobbing uncontrollably as she was forced to explain to her entire social circle why she was being legally trespassed from a wedding venue she tried to steal. I married the love of my life that day in absolute undisturbed peace, blissfully unaware of the meltdown happening at the property line. We danced, we laughed, and we celebrated the beginning of our real family, finally free from the toxic family dynamic I was born into. They say living well is the best revenge, but sometimes letting an entitled bully sprint full speed into a brick wall of their own construction is just a little sweeter. She learned a very expensive, very public lesson that afternoon. You can't manipulate reality, and you definitely can't cry your way out of an ironclad contract.